Hello, welcome to another Project Friday. Tonight, we're working on a Christmas gift. I already cast a base, last year actually, of colored Alumilite, and I 3D printed a figure of a goblin. I took that goblin and I spray painted him with white paint as a primer coat. The next step is to glue him on this base right here. I'll hot glue him so I can hold on to him as I paint him. I'm going to paint him up and then I'll epoxy him down to that colored base that he's standing on. And I'll put the base back in the mixing cup that I'm using as a mold. And I'll pour clear Alumilite, clear slow around. And I'm going to make a dragon egg out of him. So, let's get going. Alright, this is going to be my paint setup for the day. When laying out my office, I had to choose versatility. I don't have a lot of space back here, and I'm pretty eclectic in the things that I do. So at any given time, I might be doing something different on my desk. So I sort of set things up so I can change things out real quick. You can see by some of the gear in the background, I'm also into electronics. I'll do a bit of soldering and electronics type of work, mostly audio, stereo type stuff, stereo gear, hi-fi gear. But this is going to be my paint setup for today. I got myself a magnifier glass like Carol uses in her diamond painting, and I use that for detail work. This is a wet palette. I prefer this. Modeling has come a long way from when I was a kid, and this is kind of a method that we use today, and you put distilled water on a sponge, and then you have a piece of basically wax paper as a palette. And I'm working around the camera here, but you lay that out, and then you're going to mix your paints and stuff on that. You pour a little paint out, and you can mix colors real easy and do different blends, and it just works really good. It also works for thinning down paints. You could add a little bit of water. I got my brushes in that selection. As opposed to the old Tesser's model paint, I'm using Army Painter war paints. And they tend to work pretty good. Everything these days water soluble. If you turn around, I also have a good selection of makeup brushes that I use for dry brushing and weathering techniques. I probably won't be using those for what we're doing today. So, without further ado, let me set you up, and this will probably end up being a time lapse. Let's get started on the paint. I haven't really done much figure painting in my life. Growing up, I used to do model airplanes, cars, engine detailing, especially in cars, a lot of military modeling, just more machinery. I never really got into the figures. They weren't really even popular back in my day, like they are now anyway. I really don't have many tips or techniques to show as far as the painting goes, so I'm just forwarding through this fast. I would like to take the time here to explain that I am giving this as a gift to a couple friends of my son Patrick, Bubba and Avi. Avi in particular is a very talented painter. He actually has a pretty large following on Instagram at this point on his artwork. I'd like to take the time right now just to actually show a few pictures on screen here of some of the work that he's done. He is mostly into miniatures and dioramas. He plays a lot of Dungeons and Dragons and probably some other tabletop type games, fantasy role playing games, world creating, and that kind of thing. If you'd like to see more of what he's done, why don't you head over to Instagram? His name is Avi B Projects. go ahead and show him some love. Let's increase his following some more. He is up and coming, and I suspect he's going to be doing some great things in the next few years here. So go show some support for him. Back to me. My skills certainly haven't improved over the years. Time's taken its toll on me. My vision's worse, and my hands shake a little bit now, so I do the best I can with it. All right, Groovy Goblin is painted up. It is not the best of jobs. Old. I shake a little bit. I don't have the eyesight I did 30 years ago. I cut my teeth on plastic scale model building though, so this is nothing new to me. But I'd say it's a decent job. And it's going to be encased in resin, so the details aren't going to be as close as what you're seeing here. Now I got to decide, do I want to give this guy a wash of some kind? I think I do, because the colors are too bright and too shiny. I think I want to give him a black wash of some kind, or maybe a flesh wash, something to bring out the shadows and the recessed lines and darken them up. And the more I think about it, actually, the more I'm talking myself into it. You just hate to ruin something at this point, but it is what it is. Let's let them dry first, though. We'll let them dry for a few hours before I make that decision. Quick little clip. I'm watching footage I have already recorded, and looking at the close-up on the bigger screen, I'm not happy with what's happening with the sandals. Needs a little more touch-up. So I brought them down here, and I'm touching up the black again on the sandals, going back and forth. But what I wanted to point out, one of the reasons you use a wet palette, this has been a good hour since I filmed the previous clip and let him dry, and this paint is still viable. I've actually heard tales of people putting their kit away for even a week at a time and pulling it back out, and that paint's still wet and usable. But that's why you use the wet palette. It keeps that paint fresh, and you can use it indefinitely. And you can also see the two greens, how I'm starting to mix them together just a little bit to darken up the skin color in places, to give them a little extra shading, but it makes it easy to mix. Anyway, I'm touching up the sandals, so I'm going to probably let that dry, and I'll be right back, and we'll put the wash on them. All right. I cut Groovy Goblin away from the holder, cleaned the hot glue mess off of his feet, and that way I can touch up his sandals a little bit better. We're going to go ahead and try to do this wash, just with them loose. I chose a soft tone wash from Army Painter. Basically what a wash is just mostly a carrier, like I guess an alcohol or some kind of carrier with very light pigment in it. And you just wash it over whatever you're painting, and as the carrier dries away, it just kind of leaves like a dark shadow lines in the recesses and such. Part of the problem is he's just too glossy, especially the shirt and the pants. And I just kind of want to darken them up a little bit, add a little bit of recessed lines to them, a little bit of depth to them, basically. So let me shake this up real good. Usually on a wash, you would have this in a big jar, and you would just dip your brush right into the jar. This system, I'm just going to dump some out on my palette. That should probably be enough. Grab my brush. I'm working around the camera here, so I want to pick him up like he was attached to the base. And basically just wet your brush down and start at the top and just liberally. And I know it looks dark and it looks like it's going on too thick, and you worry. I was like, oh man, I'm ruining them. But give it a chance and it'll evaporate. And again, you're just basically trying to pick out the recesses is all you're doing, and you don't have to be neat about it. Just a very rough coat. And I'm going on very sloppy and very wet, trying to get into all the recesses. Let's go ahead and work this leg, and I'll switch over and then work this one. All right. So now what I'm going to do, you can't see I'm off camera, but clean my brush. And now I'm just going to start brushing them down. Use my paper towel here just to take some of this away. Oh goodness, look at that. I'm losing paint on his leg. I'm going to have to probably go back. Oh, yeah. Yep. Whatever's in that carrier, I'm losing paint. I guess maybe I didn't let it dry. Alright, well that was a wash. So, let me cut it right here. Take two on them. I went back and touched up with paint again. Now, was not happy with the color of his shorts, so I recolored those. All in all, it's not perfect, and I'm still not really happy with the gloss of the shirt, especially, but it hits a point where the more you do, the worse it gets, and it's just time to call it a day. It is what it is. So next step is to epoxy him down to the base. And then I need to let it dry, at least 24 hours, if not 48 or more. I want to make sure all moisture content is completely out. And then I'll drop them back into the mold cup. Actually, I'll probably use a fresh cup because it's got a bunch of crap in it. But I'll drop them back in the cup and pour clear over them and encase them, and hope that the paint doesn't wear off or we don't have any other kind of problems. And we'll put them in the pressure pot, try to get most of the bubbles out. And I guess we'll see what we got when that comes out, and we'll go from there. So again, next step is to epoxy him down, and well, I'm going to wait a little bit and let him fully dry, but it'll be in just a second for you. See, old nothing to see here. It's just mixing up epoxy, and in this case I just need a little tiny bit, so that's actually way too much right there, but a little bit more hardener. Yeah. In epoxy, I heard that if you're going to short anything, you actually want to short the hardener side. And if you add too much hardener, it gets gummy and it doesn't want to harden right. I don't know how true that is. We'll thoroughly mix it. Now, I don't want to use a lot. I'm also working around the camera here too. I don't want to use a heck of a lot and have this oozing out all over the place. I just basically just need good coverage right on the soles of the sandals. I'm actually going to try to get off excess. Hope I was even in frame there. The camera's at a weird angle. I'm trying not to work around it. Now, very carefully, I'm going to try to center them as best I can. When you're doing stuff like dragon's eggs or spheres, it's kind of critical where the character sits. I think we're pretty good. All right. I actually moved them just a little bit. Get my hand out of the way. All right. We will just let him sit, like I said, 24 to 48 hours or more, whenever I get back around to it. I'll let him tack up. In about half an hour, I'll be able to move him over to my other dresser and get him out of my way. He's on my desk right now, and I'll clean up. But again, I'll let him dry for a bit, and then next step is to put him back in the cup and cast some clear around him and hope for the best. All right. Well, it's been a couple days since I painted, and Groovy Goblin's had plenty of time to dry. I want to make sure all the moisture content is completely out. That paint's totally dry. There's no moisture. Plus the epoxy that I epoxied them down with is dry. I don't know if I mentioned it, but I did prep the base by sanding the top. So that's roughed up, which is why it's so dull. I didn't bother sanding this. The clear will encase this and I'll turn it off. But the only place I care about the adhesions on the top of this. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to use this cup as the mold. So I want to spray mold release. And I'm going to do that over here, over my trash can, because I do not want mold release all over my workstation. I'll put that back up there. Now, I've got to figure out how much do I want to mix. This is not going to be that critical. Basically, I just need enough to cover his head. It's a 10-ounce cup. I'm probably going to mix 8 ounces, and I'll have some left over, which I'm just not going to worry about. I'll just trash. If I was trying to be a little more careful, there are formulas, there are ways you can figure it out a little bit closer. The reality is I'm probably out of 8 ounces. I'm probably going to use 5 or 6. But what I don't want to have happen is to do a pour and find out I'm short, and then what? So I want to make sure I have plenty. I'm going to go ahead and just mix 8 ounces. Now, depending on what kind of resin you're using, a lot of it goes by weight. A lot of it goes by volume. Sometimes, like liquid diamonds, I believe goes by both. You can do either weight or volume. Alumilite Clear Slow is by weight. Well, I know I want 8 ounces by volume, so I could go ahead and break that down and try to figure out, okay, well, what do I need by weight? But rather than mess with all of that, I'm just simply going to put it on my scale, zero it out, and you can start with either part A, part B. I broke the lids loose already to make sure. But I'm just going to go ahead and fill 4 ounces. This is 50-50, by the way, too. It's a 50-50 measurement of part A and part B. And we are just under 4 ounces, but that's close enough. So I have 104 grams. So what I want to do, oh boy, is not drop everything all over the floor. What I want to do is zero this out, and I want to hit exactly 104 grams of part B. Now I'm getting close. I'm going to slow down. I'm at 82. 93. Here's 100. And 2. 103.23. Just a hair more. You want to be as accurate as you can with this. I mean, it's not critical to get to the exact gram, and the more you mix, the more leeway you have. That should be it right there. 104.1. So that's as close as you're going to get. All right. So then what you want to do, and I'll turn the scale off. Make sure my stick's clean. I want to mix thoroughly. Now I want to take my time. Now, if I was doing colors and multicolors and dividing this out and mixing stuff in, I'd have to concentrate on working a little quicker. But I'm in no hurry because all I'm doing is pouring clear. But I'll let that sit for a minute. Let's go ahead and get him put in the cup and ready to go. Also, what I like to do is I'll pull the lid off the pressure pot and get ready to put it in. But again, I'm not in that much of a hurry this time around. I do have it unhinged. It's ready to go up. So I'm just going to make sure I mix it thoroughly. Same as I do have a thermometer here, and you can take the temperature. But again, there's really no reason to because I'm not mixing in any colors. I'm not looking for the point where you would add mica powders and stuff and not worry about bleeding. Again, this is just clear. I'm actually going to hold it. I can control it a little bit better when it's... And I'm scraping the sides. I'm going around scraping the sides. I'm using the stick on the bottom. And I'm mixing thoroughly. I'm adding bubbles. But that'll be okay because I'm using a pressure pot. I mean, you don't want to froth it up. You don't want a lot of bubbles, but the directions will usually tell you how long to mix. And I mean, this stuff you want to mix thoroughly. You want to mix it a minute, at least. You don't want parts of A and parts of B. You want it all to be thoroughly mixed together. I am by no means a teacher on this. I am as novice as they come. I dabble in this stuff. I've been playing with it for a couple years now. I mean, I've learned through the school of hard knocks. I've learned a lot of lessons and wasted a lot of resin. I started out thinking, oh, this is just like kindergarten chemistry. You just pour stuff together, mix it. It's like, yeah, there's nothing to this. But you start doing it, you realize there's a lot to it. There's a lot of knowledge behind this. And you get casters like, Zach Higgins is the guy that he does videos, and I learned most of what I know from him. But Kayla Cooper, Flower Girl, her stuff amazes me. I mean, again, it's just trial and error, but you just do it and you keep doing it. You make your mistakes, and you get to the point where you got it figured out. I'm not there yet. I probably never will be. I'm a turner. I'm not a caster. I have no desire to make pen blanks anyway. I like doing stuff like this. And I cast for my own purposes, for my own hobby. All right. That is going to be mixed enough. Now I want to get this in the pressure pot while it's still halfway wet. Actually, before I make a mess on my... And this is silicone pads, by the way, so I could have just slapped it right down on the silicone, but why make a mess? All right. And then I'm just going to gently oh, look at that. I didn't have as much as I thought I was going to. I thought I'd have some left and I was going to come up over the top, but no. There are the bubbles coming up from underneath that. All right. So without further ado, I'm going to pull the lid off the pressure pot very gently. This pot is not on the most stable of bases either, so I don't want to rock it drastically and spill resin inside. I want to be kind of gentle with what I'm doing here. You can see it rocking. Now this is a CA Technologies pressure pot. I actually went the route of the Harbor Freight cheap pot, and I'll tell you what, it's night and day difference to have a real pot like this. It is well worth the investment, even for somebody like me. But I'm good up to 80 pounds on this. Now, Zach Higgins has a rule of thumb that you always want to go 10 pounds under the rating just to be safe, and I agree with that. So I'm going to fill it somewhere in 70 to 72, 73 pounds. How much do you really need? Oh, probably 40 pounds is really all you need. But again, if you got it, why not use it? Now I've heard people on Facebook talk about going up to 150 pounds too. That's stupid. Yeah, there's no reason. But 70, 80 pounds, if you got it, you might as well put it in there. So close my bleeder valve. Now, if you got headphones especially, this air compressor is going to kick on in just a second, so be aware. It's going to be a loud noise. Here we go. Okay, there we go. Yeah, that's about it. How long to leave it in? Again, watching Zach. Zach will tell you probably 1 hour is more than sufficient because your resin's hardened up at that point. You're not going to have any bubbles escaping. I tend to leave it in overnight. I mean, it's not going anywhere. It's sitting there under pressure. You might as well just leave it alone. So I'll pull it out tomorrow morning. I guess that's the next step. Pull it out, demold it, we'll glue on the waste block, and then we'll turn it. See you tomorrow. Well, good morning. It's the next morning. Time to see what we got. All right, let's move you in a little closer. This is always the nerve-wracking part for me. Is all that resin and time wasted? Is there a single bubble, a single flaw in it? Or did it turn out good? Let's find out. That popped right out. That was nice. I've got a couple bubbles up on top, but that doesn't make any difference. Zach Higgins actually explains that phenomenon. As you use a pressure pot, the bubbles float up and half of them appear in the surface. And that's a common occurrence. And again, that will all be turned off though. What I'm looking at is especially around the Goblin. Did any bubbles attach itself to his foot or in the bond? And I don't see anything. I don't see any flaws. It looks like I might have lost a little bit of paint on his shorts. I got a spot there and a little bit of a... I think, as I think about what happened to this, when I did that wash, I lost some paint. The paint's not adhering. So what's the problem? I think the problem is, well, hold on. Let me grab Dragon Remake. This is the same dragon as I have in Glitter Dragon. And I intend to remake that at some point. But I sprayed white enamel spray paint as a primer. I think that's the problem, especially as it sits and ages over a period of time. But I think that model paint is having a hard time adhering to the spray enamel paint. I think that was a mistake. I'm going to have to find a primer to use on these. I think that might be my problem. But be that as it may, I'd say he turned out extremely well. I don't see any flaws. Again, a little bit of paint missing on the shorts, but I can live with that. I mean, it's hand painted. It's not going to be perfect. I did, from the previous clip, when I epoxied him in there, I actually pulled him back up while he was still wet, because as I was looking at him, I noticed that his arms outstretched were a little bit off center, so I moved them back. Now looking at it here, I'm still not perfectly centered. I wish I was down and over a little bit more. Just, I mean, a centimeter that way. But once again, it's not rocket science, and it'll be close enough when I turn the egg. If I think about it, and I plan it out when I glue the waste block on, I might offset the waste block that centimeter to try to get the center axis, well, not down through his head, but sort of the tip of his nose is sort of where I want the axis to be as it spins, because I want him to be centered in the egg. And when you're turning, you got to think about things like this. I don't know a lot of the casters that do these figures and that, if they have that in mind. But as I look at them, I'm thinking in terms of planes, and I want, and not just planes, but like a point of axis or point of rotation. And again, I want this point of rotation down right at the tip of his nose, so that as he spins, the figure's centered. And likewise, when I do my egg, I want him to be in the upper part of the egg, and I want to have a decrease in the base material. But where do I want the equator on this egg? Do I want it up here? Do I want it down here? Because I want the figure to be raised up a little bit. I'm seeing the equator is probably waistline, or maybe even a little lower, between the knees and the waistline somewhere. Is probably where I'm going to want to center the equator as I turn this. Now, I'm not going to use a jig. I'll freehand the eggs. Again, I got to think, where do I want my waist block? Probably I'm going to grind down the base and glue the waist block to the base. It's just easier for me to turn that way. If I was doing a sphere, I'd probably do it the opposite way. But anyway, these are the little things you think about. It's the beginning of the week. I've got work to do. I call this Project Friday, but obviously this is, being done over a period of days. You can't just do it all in 1 3-4 hour session. So I'm just going to set them aside, let them sit for a little while, let it cure fully, and think about what I'm doing. And then come the weekend, whenever I have a little time, I'll go ahead and turn them. Time to do the waste block. And mix the epoxy. I'm probably going to go in and out of focus here. I'm working around the camera, trying to give you some alternate views of what I'm doing, rather than try to set the camera up in the same spot every single time. And make sure I mix this thoroughly. Uh-oh, toothpick broke. That's not good. I'm just using closet rod. I actually scavenged from my office closet and just cut a chunk off. Ran it through the disc grinder. Get the ends 90 degrees. And we're just slather it with epoxy. That'll be more than good. Keep it off my fingers. Now, if you remember, I was looking and my Groovy Goblin buddy here wasn't quite centered. He's back at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, I guess 11, 10's there, 11 o'clock, a little bit far. I want to pull him down and into like 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock. So I'm going to mount my block a little off center, but I'm going to think about this now. So I want his left hand, which is now on the right side, and he's facing front. And I'm just going to eyeball this, but start in the center, and I'm going to want to slide it just a hair toward the front and what is now the left. My left, his right, my left, because he's facing me. I'm actually standing up over this and eyeballing it. I want it closer to center than not. And I guess I'm going to go off camera here to do this. I didn't think about this step, but get this put up in the clamp. And that's okay, because I'm sort of holding it and eyeballing it myself. I got to kind of look at what I'm doing, because the thing's sliding with the clamp. Yeah. Not the easiest thing to juggle. Anyway, that's sort of where we're at. So we'll let that dry real nice for a couple days, and it'll be a good bond when we go to turn them. All right, Groovy Goblin, your time has come. Let's get her done. I'm watching the viewfinder, or not viewfinder, but the screen, and this is getting pretty bad out of focus. So let's try to back it off a little bit. The only problem with these bigger projects, if I close the hood, you can't see what I'm doing. And if I leave the hood open, you get the spaghetti all over the place. Now the game plan is to leave this one a little bit big because of his outstretched arms. I don't want to lose. I don't want him to lose a fingertip. So I gotta be careful with how far I go. I had to wipe the lens off a little bit. I made that mistake, I think it was Glitter Dragon, and there's a large portion of the video it got real foggy. Of course, on that one I didn't even have the dust collector. Yep, right in the line of fire. Sorry about that, guys. Again, I wish I had a better option here. Turn my tool rest. Get it at the end here. Trying to get this into some kind of egg shape. The irony here cup mold is wider at the top than the bottom. And I'm trying to get an egg shape that's wider at the bottom than the top. So that means I'm losing the material on the top. Closer now though. I'm going to stop and blow you off again. There we go. Alright. No, I don't want to be on the egg. See if we can get a little peek of them. Not much. I'm just trying to judge where I'm at and how much further I can go. I still got a little ways left. Yep, I don't think we're in any danger. I'm actually getting kind of happy with this as a final size. I'll refine it just a little bit more. So what would you call this? A goblin egg? pointed that's kind of flat. We're dusty again. You know, this is hard to catch on video. I have to remember to try to edit that part out. I'm liking it. I think we're there. I think that we're there. Let's shut it down, take a look. He's not as centered as he could be, but I kind of saw that one coming. It's all right, though. I think I want to put a detail in the base. And also, I think I want to come a little bit further in. Yeah, let's keep chopping right here. Actually, let me turn this. Oops. Start getting that feeling about pushing your luck. Just a little detail. Just because I felt like it. I'm going to call it good. Avi will get that reference. And I called it good. Yeah. Alright. Actually, I hope I got enough support. I can just touch this end up. Watch the thing go flying. Ka-chunk! Whoa. Go too far. Alrighty. Yeah, let's do another cut. Alright, and now we're back at you. Nice and clean, ready to polish. I always worry when we're unsupported that bond's going to break and this thing's going to go flying. Getting a chunky noise. Make sure I'm tight. Everything's good. I think it's just delayed. Yep. And these lathes do that. All three of my jets do this. It goes back and forth with like a chunky noise, almost like the bearings in the headstock. But there is no end play, and it's smooth. I don't think it's bearings. I don't know. It's not the belt. And it's sporadic. It'll run for the longest time. It'll run nice and smooth, and then it'll just start the chunking. And I have no idea. I guess it's just a peculiarity of a jet lathe. I don't know. Love my jet lathes though. I mean, it's like anything else. It has negatives. There's a few things that I can make suggestions on how to improve it, and a few things I'm not crazy about, but dollar for dollar, overall, these jet lathes are the most bang for the buck. I can confidently say that. Now, I haven't used other brands, I mean, but they are in the sweet spot for the price range. You get a lot more lathe for the dollar with these Jet 1221s. I have no hesitation of recommending this lathe if you're going to buy one. Now, money's not a factor, and if I could go out there and get anything I could, anything I wanted, oh yeah, I'd get that big Laguna lathe. Is probably the one I would get. Robust lathes are awesome. I mean, that's one solid. But, whoo, talk about expensive. Most of my cars have not cost as much as a robust lathe. And ironically enough, because I am in business and I use the crap out of these lathes day in and day out, I would not spend that kind of money on a lathe. If I was a hobbyist and I had unlimited money, yeah. Not to beat up like I do. I'm hard on my lathes. I need a lathe that's halfway disposable, that if any of these lathes broke, we can purchase a new one without having to worry about it. It's not going to break us to replace one. I mean, it's a cost for sure. It's not something we want to go out and buy, but we were just talking about that the other day. But, if I had to, I could easily get another lathe in here in a few days' time, and it's not going to break the bank. All right. I have had enough of that noise. It's hard for me. Ooh, that sounds good. Yeah. It's hard for me when I'm working to judge the volume of my voice. I don't want to be yelling at you, but by the same token, you know, I want to be loud enough that you can hear what I'm saying. It's really hard with that dust collector on. Honestly, we need to invest in some mics. Or do voiceover is another option. As we're learning our video editor, we'll probably start adding more and more voiceover. The only thing I don't like about putting grooves in things, this is why I don't do this on diamond pens. I know a lot of the other turners do, and they like putting these accents in. It's not that I can't do it, it's not that I don't like the accent, I'm just not happy with polishing the insides of them. And I'm such a perfectionist too that, you know, especially when you CA something, suck my finger into the, which if you're wondering, it hurts, but I'm always bumping, you know, on these chucks, these whirling jaws and that. I suppose if you jam your finger in there hard enough, you can probably break it, but usually it just bounces off. I mean, it's not enough where it's really going to hurt you. It's just definitely something to be aware of and focused on though when you're using these jaws, pen jaws and 4-jaw chucks and the like. You can certainly get your finger caught up in there. You know, if you ever use a towel, a cloth towel on a lathe, that's, you know, that's a danger too. I do it when I polish the pens, but I don't have much I can get caught up in. When I polish this though, I gotta be really aware not to stick that towel and get caught up in that jaw. Now, I've had it happen numerous times. You just gotta have a loose grip on the towel and just let it go. Don't try to save it, just get your hand out of there. And always shut the lathe off and then unravel it. Woodworking in general is like that. You don't try to save things. If it's going, let it go. If your saw grabs it, table saws, if it grabs hold of it, just let it go. Don't try to catch it. If you drop something off your workbench, don't try to catch it. Step back, let it hit the floor. I can't tell you the number of times I've dropped chisels and turning tools. It's like, just get out of the way. I'd rather lose the tool than gash my foot. It's our natural instinct to try to save things, and it goes against our nature when that happens. Okay, just out of curiosity, stop and take a look at them. See where we're at. Yes, this is what I'm saying about this groove. It's hard to detail these grooves. I respect the turners that offer it. I mean, it's certainly going to add some time to what you're doing. How about that? Yeah, I'm liking the looks of him. And he is off center, but it's not real bad. It's funny because I even offset the waist block. I tried to pull the waist block toward the front and toward his left, and it's still not. Keep going. You know, as far as finish, will I CA this or will I leave it natural? I can't answer that right now. I don't know yet. To see what kind of shine I can get out of it with just sandpaper, it might be a question of taking it over to the buffing wheel and trying to buff it a little bit, as opposed to putting CA on it. Problem with CA on an object this size, and as you get bigger, it's just hard to get a nice even coat all the way through. I've done it though. It's not impossible. And it would make the red base pop for sure. But my first option is to see what I can do without the CA. In this case anyway. We've had comments on some of our pen videos. Why CA? What do you CA? Why CA? Something I haven't mentioned on a CA finish. It's not just the shine in that, but it's the durability. A writing pen, you gotta consider how often is this pen gonna get used, even if it's your main pen. And most people, when they get a custom pen, it's going to sit on their desk. It's not really going to be the pen that they write with all the time. But even if it is your main writing pen, how often do you actually write with that pen? How many hours a day are you going to write? Stop and think about that, even a business, as opposed to a diamond pen, where if you're a diamond painter, you know, how long are your sessions? There's a lot of people who sit for 4, 5, 6 hour sessions every day, every other day, 5 times a week. It's a long time for that pen to be in somebody's hand and being used as a tool. So it's another reason why I like the CA finish on the diamond pens especially, is because it's durability, you know. That pen should wear for years. Just something that we thought about. Something like this, it's just going to collect dust on a shelf. It doesn't necessarily need to wear. Now, as I've been doing these and perfecting what I'm doing, one thing that I want to change in the future is the clear part of this. I'm using Alumilite Clear Slow, and I love Alumilite. I love Clear Slow. I love the diamond pens that are made out of it. It would be my go-to resin of choice for just about everything. The problem with it though is it has no UV protection in it. And over a period of years, this is going to yellow. And it'll cloud up and yellow. And really, if you want to do stuff like dragon's eggs and spears and stuff like this, the stuff that's clear, you probably want to go with an epoxy with UV inhibitor in it. And I'm looking into that. I'm leaning toward the Total Boat product right now, Total Boat epoxy. But I need to find a good epoxy with UV inhibitor to at least do the clear parts of these. So, saying that, this has a shelf life. I mean, this is only going to be good for a year or two, and it's going to start yellowing. Just know that going in. Again, I'm talking to you, Avi, especially. You know, would love to say, oh, this is going to be an heirloom gift that's going to last forever, but it's not. I'm actually just trying to address your artistic side with this project. I'm not trying to impress you with anything or but maybe this will give you some thought to expand your creativity in your projects. Because it is certainly impressive what you've been doing. And I think what's neat, just talking to you and seeing what you're doing, is that talented people, hobbyists in general, tend to be eclectic in what they do, and they tend to cross borders and cross lines. And I know, Avi, you're into the furniture building and woodworking, and you know, and it's just an extension. You know, and I'm the same way. I don't just limit myself to one thing. And what's really neat is when you can cross borders and cross lines with what you're doing, such as something like this. You know, you're using resin casting, you're using 3D modeling, you're using hand painting. I like that. I like the dioramas. You know, Avi in particular is into the tabletop modeling, like Dungeons and Dragons and the miniatures for gaming. But, you know, back in my day, we built models, they were dioramas. World War II scenes I'm really big on. And I used to like the model magazines. And I'd watch the people do the dioramas with the tanks and the battleships and the planes. And, oh man, I ate that stuff up. That's what sparked me my whole life, was seeing that stuff even in an early age and wanting to emulate it and wanting to build dioramas. You know, tell stories with the scene that you're building. I'm getting there. He's got some lines in him. He would actually polish up real nice even at this point, but I'm not quite happy with it. Not too sure how I'm going to edit this. The talking parts, do I just let it run 4 times or whatever? I don't want to make a 3-hour-long video either. So a lot of my dialogue here might be lost. That's okay. Not really saying much, just running my mouth. Yeah, we all need hobbies. My hobby was pen turning until I started doing it as a business, and I mean, honestly, you do something all day long, you tend to not want to do it in your spare time, and that's sort of what happened to me with this kind of stuff. That, yeah, I walked away from it for a while and turned to other things. But I don't know. I enjoy this. As a hobby, I really enjoy making stuff like this. Again, I like crossing lines with my hobbies. I like multiple disciplines, I guess. You know, woodworking combined with resin casting, combined with model building, combined with even as far as these miniatures go. I really, really want to learn more 3D modeling on the computer. I just don't have the time to really dive into it to the extent that you need to learn stuff like Blender. I mean, I dabble in it and I can modify things and change things, but I would really love to learn how to use Blender to a greater extent than what I know. And to be able to create stuff like the Groovy Goblin here, and be able to draw them up, make a 3D file, put them on my printer, print them out, and then use them in a project. I would like to learn 3D modeling for the gaming aspect of it. I would love to create mods for Farming Simulator and be able to create my own mods. That would be something neat to get into. I think as a discipline, if you know 3D modeling on a computer, the world's your oyster in this day and age. I mean, there's just so many branches and so many things you can do with it. I mean, even furniture design. If you could draw things up in 3D Fusion. I'm trying to think of what the other one is, the furniture. There's a 3D program they use to draw plans for furniture and stuff. It's on the tip of my tongue. But I mean, if you know how to use that, boy, does that make life simple. Not to mention all the 3D tools that you have now, like Xcarve, where you have a router on a table that moves in 3 axes, X, Y, Z, and you can program this router to carve out just about anything you can imagine. And I mean, you got water jets, you got milling machines that do the same thing. The list is endless. It is endless, the things you can do. Oh, it's starting to get some shine to them now. Let's go ahead and buff them out and see what we got. Alright, I'm going to turn up my speed real gently here while I'm holding him. Just in case he breaks loose. I want to be there. I'm not secure in my epoxy bond that's holding him to the slate right now. This is what I talk about with the towel. I want to stay away from those vice jaws. If I get wrapped up, it's going to rip this thing right out of my hand. This is very dangerous what I'm doing. I do not suggest anybody watching this. This is not the way to do it. This is very dangerous. If I get wrapped up in that spinny jaw right there, it can easily break your hand. Easily. See if I can get into that groove right there. Oh yeah. And it would not be a fun way to end the day with a broken hand. I guess I'm being melodramatic there, though. I mean, the chances are it would just rip it out of your hand. You just jump back, it would just wrap it. But again, this happens. I don't want to over-exaggerate it either. I mean, if it were that damn dangerous, I would be doing it, right? I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer, but I'm no idiot either. All right. Give me a dry towel. See, I'm not too worried about the paper towel. That'll just rip. Oh, yeah. But the weather creates enough static. It just tracks that dust. You can't do anything. It's just... Yeah, he's still got some lines. I mean, it's not done. It's really close, though. Really close. I'm really liking the looks of it. As a matter of fact, I think I might finish up my buffing wheel. He's got swirl marks going that way because of the lathe. And yeah, I mean, you can't even see it in the camera probably. I can just barely, especially when there's a backing. So now the next question that arises is, how do I get them off the lathe? There's actually several things you could do. You could part them off with a parting tool. You could grab hold and hope that the bond breaks, but it won't. I would end up snapping the resin. Here's the thing, though. He's held on to the lathe with an epoxy bond on this dowel rod. It's the only thing holding him. And again, I get nervous with that. I get leery. But I think the best thing to do is actually just to saw him off. I mean, it's not as photographic as using a parting tool and catching him and all that, but yeah, I'm going to grab my saw. I'm just going to saw him off right there and then sand the base because he's going to sit flat anyway. I want a flat base. Yeah, I could use the parting tool. I mean, yeah. Let's... Well, actually, I changed my mind. It's a good photo op to show how it's done. You part them off and you just, at the last minute, switch hands and just catch them. Usually he just plops right into your hand. But it's not really cutting into that wood too good. I'm just going to saw it. Be right back. That's the neat thing about this, though, is you always got options. You're not stuck doing it one way or another. You got woodworking in general is like that. Furniture building. There's always multiple ways to do something. If you don't have a tool, you can usually figure out another way to do it. I'm trying to saw close to the base and not bind here, and I'm also using my left hand, and I'm not left-handed. So I'm ambidextrous to an extent, and I'm not claiming that I'm technically, you know, classic definition ambidextrous, which means you can write with either hand. Yeah, that epoxy snapped. I guess I was sawing right on the epoxy bond, but look at that. I was halfway through and the epoxy snapped on the other half, which is what I'm saying. tenuous bond. I never like trusting just glue. I've seen bolt turners with big honking chunks of wood hot glue to a waste block. Oh, not me. No, sir. All right, let me stop you here. We'll take you over to the buffing wheel. Okay, this is one of those. Nothing to see here. Basically, I just use McGuire's Plastex in my towel. And I just coat them and run them over the wheels. I got a coarser wheel and a fine wheel. These are both actually considered fine wheels, but this one's a very fine polishing. This one's a little stiffer. I do have rouge and other polishes, but I just tend to use the Plastex on acrylic. Seems to work the best. But I'll just go ahead and, I don't know if I'm in camera view or not here, but go ahead and coat them up. And I just use my hands to hold them. And I probably won't bore you too long with this. I'll just let it run probably 4 times this, but I'm just going to go to town on it. Goodness, that didn't take near as long as I thought it was going to. I mean, it was pretty good already. I did sand the base off camera. I just flattened them because he's going to stand like this, of course. But I'm quite happy with that. Let's take them in and put them in the photo booth and see what we got. And there you have it. Happy Hanukkah, Avi and Bubba. Groovy Goblin. I'm happy with how he turned out. On close examination, there are a couple hairs floating inside the resin. It just goes to show when you pour this stuff, you gotta be super clean. Dust settles, hairs, anything can happen. Also, the paint job, the magnification of the resin, you can see every single flaw, little paint chipping away in places. But again, it's hand painted. It's a handcrafted item. Could it be better? Of course it could be better. It can always be better. Am I happy with it? I'm over the moon. I think he turned out wonderful. Well, hope you guys are happy with him. Once again, happy Hanukkah, and see you next Project Friday.